Hello friend, my name is Cinder and today I'm going to continue playing for you Autumn's Journey by Apple Cider. Now last time we took a mission from the night mission board, I guess, and it is involving escorting the same people that we escorted from Barry, or at least the same company, to a different city, and it might involve, that we might be escorting dragon remains, we don't know. So Kerr and Ilmari are setting up a distraction to allow us to check what's in the box to make sure that they aren't dragon remains, because that would be a invasion of sacred stuff. I don't even know, they're literally taking somebody's remains, you know? So, regardless of dragonkind or heavenkind, that's really, really not a good thing that should be allowed to happen. So, here we go. I slowly moved closer to the carriage and eventually let it pass me as I pretended to guard the rear. I would need to position myself optimally. The air around me cooled, causing me to shiver. A mist emerged from the ground and enshrouded us. Many of the knights paused and the carriage slowed down. Fog at this time? But it was clear just a second ago. I heard a loud roar. Something rammed into one of the knights and they instantly vanished into the mist, causing the others to panic. Was that a ghost? Whoa, effective. Swords drawn, the knights formed a tightly knit group to defend themselves. I took this opportunity to dash to the carriage and throw open the door. I heard another thud, followed by a scream. Dervishi huddled on the seat when I barged in, and I tugged on his arm. "It's not safe here. You need to get out of here now." Out of the corner of my eye, I spied the box on the floor. I yanked on Dervishi's arm again, and he reluctantly got out. As soon as he was outside, I dove inside and shut the door. "Hey! Sorry." I snatched up the box and proceeded to exit on the other side, or tried to until I realized the door was locked from the inside. These doors! Foiled again! Infuriated that my plans were being thwarted by wooden barriers, I pushed open the other door, nearly smacking the client in the face as I slipped out. "Sorry again." He saw that I had the box and his eyes widened in outrage. "Traitor! Thief!" I ducked and darted around the carriage, alarming the horses as I headed straight into the thickest part of the mist. I heard the knights scrambling to find me as Dervishi screamed orders at them. Heart pounding, I increased the distance between us. Whoa! The mist cleared as I reached a steep slope. I momentarily looked down, then glanced back as I heard more clamors. I jumped down, my body slightly angled. I staggered awkwardly as I landed, trying not to hit a tree or trip on a root. Did I get away? And the others? Remembering that I still had the box, I knelt down and hastily unhatched it. I opened it up and inhaled sharply. Inside were beautiful long objects that resembled shale with an emerald sheen. They were exactly like Kerr's ears. Underneath were hard flint-like stones with beautiful grooves and ridges. Scales? This is bad. And it was possible this wasn't just a one-time delivery. If the first carriage had also carried dragon remains, this could be a full-fledged underground trading route. How long had this been going on? How did the knights not know? Wouldn't they check the contents? Unless... I shut the box, pushing it underneath a shrub for now before standing up. I needed to inform Kerr and Omari. Before I could take another step, the earth suddenly erupted. A large fissure ruptured at my feet, causing me to fall back. Ah! Showered in dirt, I coughed and trembled uncontrollably, unable to stand up. Not so reckless now, are you? Dervishi stood about 20 paces away, the same peddler appearance replaced by a sinister countenance. What? How did you... Casually resting on his shoulders was a mace, decorated with spikes that resembled hard tissues, namely bones and oversized teeth. I got up unsteadily, supporting myself against a tree. You'll be surprised how much power dragon bones can grant you. Everything is permeated with magic, even long after they die. Why are you doing this? Who are you delivering these remains to? He snorted and rolled his eyes. Please, I'm not just going to explain everything just because you asked. Just return the box and you'll be left unharmed. Now, where did you put it? I unsheathed my sword and widened my stance, hoping not to falter now. I'm not handing it over. Pity, I hate searching. Lifting the mace, he slammed it onto the ground. Another chasm opened up, and I screamed, my body paralyzed by every vibration. It was then that I heard a loud creak behind me. I glanced up in terror. One of the trees became unstable, and I groaned as it started to lean heavily. Dervishi pointed the mace at me threateningly. Move, and the next attack will crush you. I stood up, but I stayed in place. My legs felt so weak I probably couldn't walk if I tried. I heard footsteps approaching, and I prayed it was my friends. Instead, 4 of the original 7 knights joined Dervishi. They glanced at each other, obviously baffled by the situation, but obediently aligned themselves before the merchant. She's the one who ran off with the goods. I don't know who she's working for, but since she's refusing to cooperate, give it back and we won't hold this action against you. Wait, I'm not betraying anyone. The box has dragon remains. It's sacrilegious to move them. Their souls can't return to... Be quiet, we know what we're delivering, and that's just a silly superstition. Superstition? What you're doing is discourteous to dragonkind. Aren't you a knight in training? Why are you disobeying orders? Do you want to throw away your chance of becoming a full knight? One of the other knights sighed and tried to speak to me more gently. Don't you think you're being too impulsive here? You're obviously young, with a lot of pressure to your name. Don't do something rash and tarnish ancient Argent Valaire's reputation with your disloyalty. It's our duty as knights to carry out our mission with the guild and clients' best interests in mind. No, what I'm doing is more important. This is for both Dragonkind and Heavenkind's sake. I'm not surrendering those remains. Sensing that my resolve would not yield, the knights brandished their weapons at me. Then I'll just report to the guild that you got caught in an unfortunate accident. Smirking, Dervishi slammed his weapon against the ground 2 more times. Each shockwave rolled over me, rendering me motionless. There was an ear-splitting crack as the tree began to topple. Ora! Ilmari's desperate voice suddenly shifted into a growl, and a large turquoise body sailed over me. A section of Ilmari's long neck slammed into the thick trunk as he halted its fall. His tail thrashed as he roared, straining against the weight. Ilmari was a water dragon. He couldn't move effectively on land, and he had essentially pinned himself to protect me. Ilmari! His large face turned to me. His expression was unreadable in dragon form, but I sensed his concern. I'm fine, and you were right about what the box contained. The knight seemed to waver, intimidated by the dragon's presence. Slay that dragon. Consider this out of self-defense, and you will be paid tenfold for its corpse. Don't be scared. Look at how helpless it is. Ilmari snarled, but his only real weapon was his teeth and his tail, and he was immobile. He couldn't transform back either, else he risked being flattened by the tree. Where was Kerr? I altered my stance, inviting the knights to take me on. With numbers on their side, they advanced toward me until one of the more patient ones broke from their position. I dashed forward, swinging my sword as I met the first knight. She parried and thrust her sword forward. I sidestepped, but had to duck as an axe soared over me. Wait! Knights are supposed to fight one-on-one! Ah! I was spun around and kicked the axeman in the back of the knee. I knew I dealt with warriors more experienced with me. Maybe I could hold my own in an individual fight, but... My minor victory was short-lived when I felt a hot pain sear my left arm. I hissed in pain, realizing I had received a shallow cut from a blade. Blood trickled down my elbow. That moment of hesitation left me open, and I barely blocked another attack. The axeman and the swordswoman were overwhelming me, and I frantically tried to keep them at bay. With each swing, their weapons grew dangerously closer, and each blow reverberated up my sword arm. More blood spilled as a steel blade bit into my torso, and I cried out. Ilmari's roar was deafening, and suddenly the axeman was hit with a full blast of water, causing him to topple over. Oralee, stay near me! His guttural voice startled me, since I had no idea he could talk in his dragon form. Looking back, I saw Amari urgently stretch out his neck in an attempt to shield me, his fangs fully bared. I retreated closer to him as my 3 opponents surrounded me. One sprinted towards Elmari, who was focused on another knight, aiming his sword at the dragon's neck. No! I blocked his attack, trying not to buckle under the strain. Forcing my whole weight forward, I managed to push him back. I heard swift footsteps a moment later, and the knight I fought suddenly flew back from a hasty punch. Kerr! He flashed me a confident grin. Sorry, I was preoccupied with a few others. There will be no reinforcements after this. 2 down, 3 to go, including Dervishi. Kerr spotted Omari, and his face flickered in pain. I gestured to the merchant and his mace. Kerr, stop him now! That weapon causes earthquakes! Kerr charged ahead, but the swordswoman blocked him. The other knight, who possessed a flail, focused on me. Although the flail's range was short, its battering power was enough to make me wary. As I dodged an attack, I stepped forward, and my foot found nothing but air. Tumbling, I dove to the side to avoid falling into the chasm, leaving me vulnerable. Ah! Before I could roll away, the dirt beside me burst as the steel ball slammed down inches from my head. Discarding my sword, I grabbed the chain before the knight could raise his weapon and wrenched it out of his grip. He stumbled toward me as I rotated on my back. I placed a well-aimed kick to his stomach and he staggered back. I quickly retrieved my sword and scrambled up. Desperate, he bolted for his weapon, but a strong stream of water from Elmari caused him to topple into the chasm. Kerr had already incapacitated his opponent, leaving only Dervishi, who had retreated enough to be out of Elmari's range of attack. We caught up to him. If you cast aside your weapon, no one will get hurt. Were you simply following orders? If I turn you in... Me? Turned in? You're the one who stole a merchant's goods. There's no penalty for possessing dragon remains. The other knights will report what happened, and you'll be stripped of your rank and... He recklessly slammed his mace into the ground, unsympathetic to the unconscious or wounded knights around him. Terrified, I dropped my sword and knelt down, resisting the urge to cry out. Ilmari roared as the tremors caused the tree to abrade painfully against his scales. Kerr bounded forward, unfazed by the attacks. Before Dervishi could launch another assault, Kerr's fist met his cheek. The merchant went flying, and his body slammed and tumbled against the hard terrain. On his knees, Dervishi threw a fit and repeatedly pounded the ground with the mace. Every strike resounded and increased each tremor's intensity. Stop it. If you keep that up... Kerr had to leap away before the ground nearly swallowed him up. There's going to be an avalanche. That's basically what's going to happen. Hang on, I need to drink some water. Okay. Deep fissures appeared and split, causing the ground to distort. Loose dirt rained down from the steepest slopes, as if its entire region was going to liquefy. Like a spiderweb, the ground around Dervishi groaned and heaved. I couldn't move. I could only watch helplessly. Wait! The merchant gawked and slipped back, but Kerr caught him just before he vanished into the gaping new ravine. The mace slipped from his grip, disappearing into darkness and giving one final tremor. Kerr forcibly threw Dervishi into the solid ground. I slowly regained my balance, but I was determined to remain strong. Dervishi crumpled to the dirt in supine position, and I instantly pointed my blade at his exposed neck. It's over. You're nothing without that weapon, so just get lost. His forehead beaded with sweat as he nodded fervently, all of his fight gone. You're going to let him go? He used dragon remains for a weapon. Disgusting. I'm not going to kill him. The Argent Valere is aware of what's going on. They would probably protect him. Then who could I turn to? Dervishi wriggled out from under my sword and tried to make a hasty withdrawal. Kerr simply punched his lights out. A little extreme there? He not only tried to kill us, he put his own men in danger. I should ask Ilmari to eat him. I don't think he'd agree to that. A distressed roar caught our attention. Ah, speaking of him, Ilmari! Forgetting about the merchant, we hurried back to where Ilmari was. Kerr surveyed the situation and ran under the trunk, positioning himself close to Ilmari's neck. You really don't do well on land. Ilmari hissed, unamused by Kerr's comment. With a heavy hoist, Kerr pushed up the trunk with exceptional strength. Mist formed around them. As the tree crashed back to the ground, I scrambled to Ilmari's side. He was kneeling down and moaning. Ilmari, are you okay? That was so reckless. I'll be fine. My neck. It's gonna be sore for a week. He was on the verge of tears. But what about you? Those injuries, I couldn't stop them. Sobbing, he clung me, burying his head into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I was useless. This was the best I could do. I patted his back reassuringly. You were anything but useless, Ilmari. I wouldn't have survived if you hadn't come to my rescue. I feel like I didn't do much myself. If anything, the person who helped us out most was... We both turned to Kerr expectantly, who flinched from our tender expressions. He coughed and gave us a haughty glare, placing his hands on his hips. That's right, I did most of the work. Sheesh, both of you are pitiful. Wait, what are you doing? We both embraced Kerr, refusing to let him escape. Just, that's amazing. Poor Kerr. Parasites. I laughed and stepped back, while Kerr had to apply more force to free himself from Ilmari. Excuse me. Remembering the box, I returned to its hiding spot and pulled it out from under the shrub. You're really lucky that a ravine didn't get, sent there and problems. I was surprised it managed to make it through unscathed. Moments later, the other two surrounded me and peered over my shoulders as I unfastened the latch. Earth Dragon. Using our remains for weapons? Ugh. Let's bury them, somewhere away from this battlefield, in case they decide to look for them. While Kerr fetched the mace, Ilmari and I walked until we reached the farthest fissure we could find. We were surprised by how much the region was affected by the mace's powers, and Kerr worked diligently to pry the remains from the weapon. He tossed them into the chasm, then picked up the box and emptied it over the fissure. He placed an open palm on the soil, and I stepped back, preparing myself for one of his abilities. The ground trembled slightly as debris and soil loosened, filling up a section of the rupture. When it was over, I sighed, feeling utterly exhausted. I've had enough earthquakes for one day. I'm completely shaken up. I mustered a weak giggle when Ilmari groaned. Heavenkind humor. It's bad. Kerr wiped the dirt off his hands. What now? I grabbed my knight in training badge and glanced at it. With a dismissive wave, I tossed it to the ground, surprising them both. Are you sure about this? It's something you worked for. Maybe if you return and explain to the guild. He stopped when he saw me shake my head. No, the Argent Valere Guild is in on this. I don't want anything to do with them or the knights. Besides, Dervishi had a point. The other knights will report what happened, and I'll have no chance to redeem myself after that betrayal. I'm done. I took a few steps forward and turned to them so I could address them properly. Let's go home. Besides, I think this is something you should inform your masters about as soon as possible. If we can't rely on the guild to build a rapport between Heavenkind and Dragonkind, we'll need another angle. We headed back to the main road, careful of the steep slope and the chasms the fight had created. The carriage was gone, and we saw no other knights. Kerr explained that he had managed to drive them off, which is why it took him a while to come to our rescue. Without my knowing, I started to linger behind the two, my feet dragging slower with each step. The other two noticed and turned worryingly. Are you okay, Aura? I chuckled in an attempt to ease their worries, but the tears appeared anyway. I'm fine. If anything, I feel like a huge burden was lifted off my shoulders. But it still hurts. I wanted to be a knight for years, and now I'm accepting it'll never happen. I worked so hard. My shoulders shuddered, and I covered my face, feeling pathetic and worthless. I sensed someone standing before me, and I glanced up. Kerr glowered, unimpressed. He gave me a light smack on the forehead. Ow! What was that for? Kerr! I rubbed the spot indignantly. Didn't I tell you this before? That is just a title. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Well, yeah. I am losing my voice. Knights are supposed to help those in need, and I think certain someone has already been a knight for a while in spirit anyway. And in the end, you did the right thing. We can't thank you enough. Thanks. As we walked, I expressed concern over being sought out, and the others reassured me that nothing like that would happen. I did uncover an unsettling activity that would need to be confronted after all. They would seek protection from other dragons to watch over Barry, and my heart sank when they avoided the notion that they would be the ones guarding. Guess they still had amends to make. Chapter 9, Home. Fortunately, we did not remain long in Oliver. We were able to find a Barry resident who had delivered the last of his cargo to the city, and he offered to give us a ride back. We took it easy as we relaxed on the back of the wagon. I was still emotionally fatigued, but did my best to remain engaged in conversation, especially since it now tackled more sensitive issues. The wagon ride was smooth, but whenever a jolt or bump happened, I would stir or bolt upward. However, I was able to have a nice nap for a little while. My eyelids fluttered as I heard Ilmari and Kerr's voices drift in and out. Bringing it up to Master Ashelio. It's about time the Seraphes looked beyond the Skylands. Pfft, good luck getting them involved, pompous dragon kind. What really concerns me is how the Heavenkind even found the Seraphes' remains. They shouldn't have any means of accessing them. I'll see if Master Bedros will arrange a meeting. Right, and I'll have to break this to Master Kaya gently. She'll be even more reluctant getting involved. I can imagine her reaction. Oh my, this is why you shouldn't interact with Heavenkind. Hilmari burst out laughing at the high-pitched voice. She doesn't sound... Okay, she does. You're more observant than I thought. Because she's always with Master Bedros and I'm stuck listening to her uptight... Ah, you're up. Planning to sleep the whole afternoon away? I yawned, rubbing my eyes as I surveyed our location. We were passing through the birch forest near Barry, and I was situated between Ilmari and Kerr, their shoulders grazing mine. Yeah, I'm up. What were you two discussing? Just a lot of stuff that we have to do once we return. Sooner the better. His face fell as he said that, but he forced a smile to reassure me. And Kerr was entertaining me with his imitations. I wasn't even trying, but I could probably do better than Aura. I thought back to the scene in the forest when I poked fun at him during a meal. I admit it wasn't the most accurate impression. Kerr grinned teasingly. Hi, I'm Auralee from Barry. I let my sword do the talking and ow! I elbowed him and grumbled. I deny all that. Ilmari found the whole thing amusing. Me, imitate me. Kerr and I exchanged a smirk. I have a question. I have another question. I do not ask that many questions, do I? Ilmari, that was another... Ah! The wagon bumped abruptly and I bolted upright, clutching my chest to quell my reaction. Aura? Are you okay? I felt my friends hovering nearby. As my heart calmed down, I sank back to my original position between them. I'm okay, just startled. I hope you don't mind me asking, but where did this fear of earthquakes originate? Huh? Sorry to pry. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. It would have helped if I'd known sooner. I didn't even notice. It's alright. It's not usually brought up, since it's rare for me to get caught in earthquakes or tremors. I ummed and hmmed until I figured out a good beginning point, and we will find out this story of why Aura is afraid of earthquakes next time. So thank you for watching. I love you. Bye-bye.